So, did the man who invented college go to college? Hey guys, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite albums, and this morning I reviewed a Black Keys album, but right now I gotta throw it back a little bit because I have 4 more albums from 2015 that I would like to talk about before I talk about some 2014 albums a couple of days later. And if you have watched my mini albums review 2015 edition, my first 2015 mini albums review video, I have said that I would be doing a review on Joanna Newsom's dRuGz, but at the end I decided to not do a full review on it because I think I have more interesting albums to talk about. But I'm not saying that dRuGz is a bad album, though. In fact, I think it's pretty good. It's just not as interesting, not as intriguing. I still really love the instrumentations on this thing. They're really organic, really beautiful. The harp playing is just gorgeous. The vocals by Joanna Newsom herself are really unique, and tracks like Sapaconican, Sapacanican, and the title track are highlights for me. And I have also listened to 1 or 2 crappy albums from 2015, like that Meghan Trainor album, Title, or that Kid Ink album, Full Speed, which is just the definition of generic. There is nothing special, original, or in good taste about the album that is Full Speed by Kid Ink, but I have 2 even worse albums that I would like to talk about today. So anyway, let's start off with Chelsea Wolfe with Abyss. So Chelsea Wolfe is a singer-songwriter who is really, really well known for her really dark, industrial, depressing, drony, atmospheric music that combines goth rock and noise rock together, and I'm gonna talk about the album. So the album starts off with Carrion Flowers, which has these really crazy, dramatic, rumbly, gurgly, distorted bass going up over and over again. It's really disturbing, and we get some really cold-blooded vocals from Chelsea Wolfe herself and some really primal drums. So we're off to a very powerfully dark opener for the album. And then we have Iron Moon, which has some really drunken, doomy riffs and some really beautiful and sour and eerie vocals. And what's special about this track is that we get some really low-key and sweet folky verses, but then in the chorus it gets loud and drunken and dark and menacing, and it's a pretty creative pairing, I must say. The track Dragged Out is amazing in my opinion. I love the wailing guitar leads and the very horrifying, almost psychedelic, but in a dark and gloomy way, guitar riffs, and together the vocals. It's just a really mesmerizingly dark song, especially when there are so many effects on Chelsea Wolfe's vocals, especially in the beginning where her vocals are just chopped up and it sounds like birds in the sky, and each bird carries a vocal snippet of Chelsea Wolfe, and these birds aren't like friendly small birds. They are large, pointy, black birds which only kill, you know. Then we have the track Maw, which is one of the slower and quieter moments on the album. The chord progression, I think, is a little bit predictable, a little bit not so original, and the song is a little low-key and a little drab. I like the compressed guitars, but they don't go really that well with the vocals. And the next track, Gray Days, is an amazing song as well. I really love the constantly banging drums and the very, very beautiful cello on this thing. The vocals, they just hold so much pain and agony in it, and it's really beautiful. And the climax is just so massive and epic. And then we have the track After the Fall, which has some sharp, bright synths. And then in the middle of the track, we get some weird And then in the middle of the track, we get this weird detour that are some prickly electronic synths, and it's really weird. It's a weird intermission, but overall, it's still a really downtrodden and bitter song with a really creative uh, production. Then we have the track "Crazy Love," which sounds a lot like a Radiohead song, except it's 10 times darker and less melodic. And it reminds me a lot of True Love Waits, actually. The lyrics, they are meh, they're kind of repetitive, but still not a bad song by any means. The track Simple Death has some whispery, intimate vocals and some subtle synths and guitars, and even though it's not a bad song, it's also not one of the best songs on the album. The track Survive is actually pretty good. We get some really downtrodden and muddy bass lines and some really drony atmospheric background music, instrumentals, and then even though at first it's pretty slow, it builds up very, very slowly to this crazy climax, even though the drums, they feel a little bit off. Then we have the track The Color. Fuck it. Then we have the track Color of Blood, which has this really drony, blown out bass, which is just really noisy, and we get some loud and thudding drums, which are just fantastic. And the album ends off with the title track, which is the most sparse track, the most deranged track on the entire album. We get these really eerie and scary pianos. They sound like they come straight out of a horror movie because they're just crazily spamming on different notes. It's deranged, it's crazy, and it's just a really dark and atmospheric closing to the album. Very, very fitting and conclusive closing to the album. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed this album, feeling an 8 out of 10, and my favorite here is Grade A's, and my least favorite is Crazy Love. Okay, I'm sorry, I need to turn on the air conditioning. It's just too hot. I cannot bear the heat. Anyway, the second album that I would like to talk about is Tame Impala with Currents. It's currently 8:30 and I'm yet to have my dinner, so I'll talk quickly here. So Tame Impala is the very famous Australian psych rock band, and they have been coming out with some really compelling, catchy, dreamy, psychedelic pop music. However, if there's one thing that I don't like about this album, it's the vocals. They feel a little one note and a little bland at times. They feel kind of washed out at times, and if they drag on for a little too long, it gets stale. But still, everything else about the album is pretty fantastic. We get the album opener, Let It Happen. Let It Happen. It is a 7-minute long, multifaceted psych pop epic that has so many different passages leading to one another. They are all amazing. The instrumentals, they sound so stressed, but at the same time, they sound so dreamy and sweet. And I really love the bleepy bloopy synths. The bridges are intergalactic, and they're also really sad, but also really beautiful. And the synth leads are incredibly bright and colorful. Bam, 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 bam. And this album is a really weird album, not because it's really experimental or anything, but occasionally we get these really short tracks that are just really short for some reason. Like the next track, Nangs. Which has this really psychedelic, dreamy, warpy synth instrumentals in the beginning, and at the second half we get this hip hop beat, and that's the whole track. It's about 1 minute long, and then after that it's The Moment, which has this really colorful and blissful synth line, and it's actually really similar to Tears for Fears' Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, ba. And then, but yeah, still, the track is very sweet, very dreamy, really catchy, and I absolutely love it. The next track is Yes, I'm Changing, and it's this really slow, low-key, sensual ballad. And while I think the vocals are really one note on this track, and the instrumentals are kind of drab and sleepy, I still enjoy the overall vibe that I get from the track. The next track is similar, it's titled Eventually, except it has this heavy, booming lead guitar line that constantly interjects with these soft and dreamy verses, and I actually really like the structure of the track, and I also really like the beautiful strings and the finger clicks on the track. The next track is Gossip, and it's another short instrumental track. We get some jittery, warpy synths that are really colorful and bright, actually, like the album cover here. And we get The Less I Know The Better, which is fantastic. It's basically a catchy, groovy disco jam that's just super duper catchy. And after listening to the song stuck to my head for like 2 days. And the bridge, it feels like we're being teleported to the edge of the world. It's really, really beautiful. And then we have the track Past Life, which has some 80s throwback synths that are sappy and some pitched vocals, some muffled low pass vocals actually, or high pass? Nope, low pass. Low pass makes it muffled, high pass makes it sound like it's played through a telephone. But yeah, we get the boomy beat, and we get some drowned out vocals, and overall I'm not a huge fan of the track, even though it's still not bad. Then we have the track Disciples, which is this short unfinished song, but they like the song so they have to slap it on the album, but it's actually pretty good. It's basically this quick, sunny, blissful indie jam. And then we have the track Cause I'm a Man, and it's a slow jam track, but it still has some really beautiful, chirpy, bright, dreamy guitars, even though I still think the track needs more focus and it needs more of a climactic explosion. And then we have the track Reality in Motion, which is basically a really solid psych pop song. The vocal harmonies are really sunny and wavy and reverby and beautiful. The next track is Love/Paranoia, and it's this mellow, slow song, but it's actually incredibly catchy and beautiful. Again, really boomy beat and some beautiful stargazing guitars as well. And then the album ends off with New Person, Same Old Mistakes, and even though it's not a great ending, I still enjoy it quite a bit. I love the sensual, constant groove of the track. However, not a fan of the bass and vocal playing and singing the same notes at the same time thing. It's a little annoying, redundant, and the ending where it just fades out is just a little meh, could have been better. But still, overall, I enjoy the album quite a bit. When the album shines, it really shines. When the album lulls, it really lulls. So, but yeah, it mainly shines more than it lulls. So, I am giving it an 8 out of 10 as well. Favorite track, Let It Happen. Least favorite, Yes, I'm Changing, or Past Life. Past Life. Up next, I'm gonna be talking about Willow Smith with Arpidithecus. Yeah, so Willow Smith is the daughter of Will Smith, famous actor, famous rapper, and Willow Smith is the sister of Jaden Smith as well. And he had dropped some like Billboard chart-topping singles like 21st Century Girl or I whip my hair back and forth, I whip my hair back and forth. and then out of the blue, he decided to drop an album, and quite literally out of the blue, look at the album cover. I mean, she becomes Avatar on this thing, or a Smurf, I don't know, but she's blue now after the evolution. And yes, I don't like this album, and I think she's cool. I think Will Smith's cool, but with all due respect, this is not a good album, not at all. The album starts off with Organization and Classification, where she says, "Organization and classification ruining the hearts of our generation." There we go. I said it. Boom. Just imagine me wearing the sunglasses, wearing the shades. Oh man. Throughout the entire album, Willow Smith sounds like she has so much important information to say. She sounds really, what the heck? Okay, notifications. She sounds really narcissistic and pretentious on this album. And, I mean, again, no hate towards her. I respect her. I think she's a cool person. But, like, the lyrics on this album, wow, so deep. Wow, says a lot about our society. I mean, the first track itself is already really messy and drab, and her vocals, sometimes they sound like it's gonna be this, badass low-key thing. Sometimes it's just soaring in the sky, and then when you combine the two together, it sounds absolutely awkward. And man, the second track is Natives of the Windy Forest, where she tries to do this indigenous rip-off song, and it's just hilariously head-scratching. And her vocals are like karaoke vocals. The track dRuGz ends with Z because it's angsty, dRuGz. And the production is horrible. It's horrid on this track. And on this track, the beat is pretty much non-existent. It's kind of squawky. It's in the back, and there isn't any instrumental here. There's just her singing a cappella, and it's just really plain and mundane. The track Cycles tries to sound like a summery pop jam, and it just falls completely flat because the vocals are just annoyingly high, but not that high, but still kinda high, and it's just annoying. What's the point? And the instrumentals itself aren't really that great. The track FQC number 8, number 8, has this weird xylophone guitar instrumental, which I just can't. The track Not So Different features her friend, and it's this low-key pop song about friendship. Yay, friends are good. We get some constantly pounding beat, and we get the vocal harmonies, which sounds demented. The track IDK has this hip-hop beat and some Björky vocals, and still she sounds like she's singing off-key all the time. She's basically the Blueface of pop music at this point. And then we have Random Song, which is a random song. We get some freaky deep vocals and these whoa vocals, which I don't understand at all. I appreciate that she's trying to sound artsy, but if you want to go artsy, please own your style first. Please experiment a little more first, and don't experiment halfway. Anyway, we have the track Marceline. The first part is this really one-dimensional guitar jam that's really bland. The second part is slightly better. We get this futuristic bass line and a strong beat. Even though the vocals suck, I still think the song is okay. And the next track, Your Town, is this really weird, scant, scratchy guitar song that is really bland. The next track, Star, has this odd, skippy instrumental that just sounds like it's trying to start every time it starts, but it never really starts. The next track is Wait a Minute, and it's the only good song on the album. It's this odd one out. It's like this, what's that Chinese saying? This tall bird in the middle of a sea of chickens, because it's the only song that sounds great in the midst of all these crappy songs. It's a legitimately solid pop song. It has a catchy chorus, a nice hook. But then next track we get Waves of Nature, which has some marchy drum sequences and some glossy pianos, but again, everything else about the song is just purely bland. There's no progression, not at all. And the album ends off with Why Don't You Cry, and even though the verses and the choruses, they are pretty obvious here, the songwriting is just ridiculous. Why don't you cry? Yeah, feeling a 2 out of 10 for the album, strong 2. Favorite track here is Wait a Minute. Least favorite, I don't know. The album opener, I guess. Next track is Hopsin with Pound Syndrome. Basically equally as bad. Willow Smith can sing. Hopsin can rap, but both of them have terrible taste in music, and both of them try to sound edgy and woke and deep, and it completely falls flat. And same goes for Pound Syndrome. So yeah, he sounds like Eminem first of all, and not because his music is as good as Eminem, but he sounds like Eminem, like really, like the voice, Eminem. Anyway, the album starts off with Forever 3, which has this really cliche, cheesy horror movie instrumental thing, some slow beats, and we get him singing, trying to sound edgy, and it just ends up cringy. The track No Hope sounds like your usual sad Eminem rap song, except lyrically it's way worse. It's basically Hopsin, after being famous, after gaining this victory, yelling back at those people who didn't help him. He's basically saying fuck you back to the people who didn't like him before. And it just sounds so bitter and so unpleasant. It's like he's not even enjoying his fame at all. And then we have the track Ramona, which also sounds like a goofy Eminem song. And on this track, it's so disgusting and gross because basically he tries to impersonate one of his hardcore fans, and it just ends up a cringe fest. The next track is Mr. Jones, and it's this messy trap flavored track, and him saying, "What you gotta say now, Mr. Jones? What you gotta say now, Mr. Jones?" It's just really redundant. Then we have Fort Collins, which is a more narrative-heavy track, and it's actually lyrically one of the better tracks on the album. He talks about how he experienced a lot of pressure when he performed at his previous tour before releasing this album, and how one time he just had so much pressure he basically skipped out one of the live shows, and he tells that story on his side now, and it's a pretty smart track lyrically. And then we have No Words, a skit where he basically complains that a lot of the rappers nowadays basically don't speak words, like Young Thug and other mumble rappers, and in fact he tries on that mumble rapping a little bit himself as this joke song, and it's bad, but at least it's not as bad as a majority of the tracks on this album. We have the track Crown Me, which is actually pretty damn good. The hook is kind of catchy, and I kind of like the sizzly beat underneath, and his speedy flow is actually really well performed. But the next track, Ill Mind of Hopsin 7. What's so ill about your mind? Is actually not that hard-hitting of a song. The instrumentals is really laid back, kinda underwhelming, and basically on this track, he throws a temper tantrum over the concept of religion. And then we have the track FV Till I Die, which doesn't sound all that bad. It's basically this banger anthem song, except the hooks are so weak. And the track My Love is a love song. Enough said. He sings on the entire track. He sings throughout the entire track. And it's terrible. Again, he sings off key all the time. And we have No Fucks Given, which is this weird acoustic guitar ballad song with some annoying layered vocals with terrible production. And we have the track Fly, which is just the worst cringeworthy bars. Here and there he tries to sound edgy and woke. Completely fails. The track doesn't have a beat. No. And the hook is this really overblown out-of-tune pop hook that is just, what's wrong with him? And then after the core part of the track finished, we get this super long-winded vocal part that's just straight up unlistenable. It's so bad. And the album ends off with I Just Can't, because I just can't. But actually, I Just Can't is a banger. It's pretty hard hitting. I kind of like the beat, even though it's not really original or anything. At least it's listenable. At least his rapping abilities shine through the beat here. But still, a majority of the album really sucks, and he's Hopsin, and he hops into the trash can. Haha. So yeah, I'm feeling a 2 out of 10 for the album. Favorite track here? Crown Me. Least favorite? Fly. So, have you listened to these albums from 1 to 10? How much did you rate them? Like if you like them, hate if you hate them, and subscribe if you want more. Thanks for watching.